I didn't know she existed, unearthing history's overlooked women I didn't know she existed, my friend Laura said, her voice a mix of disbelief and a familiar frustration. We were sitting in a small, cozy cafe on a rainy Thursday afternoon, our coffee cups steaming as we pored over a stack of dusty old documents I had brought along. Laura, a fellow history enthusiast, often joins me in my quest to uncover stories of women history seems to have forgotten. Today, we were focusing on a woman named Clara, whose contributions to early 20th century science had been buried beneath layers of anonymity. What's interesting is how Laura's comment struck a chord with me. It wasn't just about Clara, of course. It was about all the women whose stories had been lost or, perhaps more accurately, overshadowed by their male counterparts. And it led to a question that kept nagging at me: why is sharing the stories of forgotten women beyond academia crucial, especially now? I had been confident about the importance of my project, but I was beginning to see its deeper complexities, its sheer necessity. The detective work, uncovering Clara's legacy 3 months ago, I embarked on this project with enthusiasm and, admittedly, a bit of naivety. I had assumed that piecing together Clara's story would be a straightforward task, a bit of digging in archives, some interviews, and voila, her narrative would emerge. Boy, was I wrong. Clara was a brilliant physicist whose work had been instrumental in developing early wireless communication. Yet, her name was nowhere to be found in textbooks or mainstream historical accounts. Frustrated, I delved deeper, reading through obscure journals and correspondences. It was in these hidden sources that Clara's story began to come alive, like a faint signal finally breaking through the static. For more on this kind of historical detective work, you might find Uncovering Forgotten Women in Hidden Sources a fascinating read. Hitting the wall, the messy middle of historical erasure. As the project progressed, I truly hit a wall. I realized I wasn't just facing a lack of information, I was confronting an active, systemic erasure of women like Clara from the historical narrative. The biases inherent in historical documentation were glaringly obvious. I remember calling Laura one evening, my voice tinged with genuine frustration. "I can't believe how much they've been ignored," I said, pacing my living room. "It's like history itself conspired to keep them in the shadows," she agreed, sharing my anger and determination. Here's the thing though, this isn't just a historical curiosity. A 2024 study on social studies curricula and textbooks, for instance, found that women's contributions in various domains are still insufficiently represented, with male figures predominating. This underrepresentation, frankly, hinders female students from finding role models and leads to an incomplete understanding of history. It's a persistent, frustrating echo of the past. That's when I stumbled upon a journal article that sparked a new direction. It talked about the biases in documenting women's historical contributions, and it was like a light bulb went off in my head. I realized that the issue was bigger than Clara. It was about actively challenging and revising existing narratives, about acknowledging the pervasive gender data gap that means there's a deficit of informative data on women across various fields. For those interested in this critical aspect of historical revision, I highly recommend Uncovering Biases in Women's Historical Contributions. A breakthrough, finding community and new paths with renewed focus, I started reaching out to other researchers and historians who were working on similar projects. The community I found was incredibly supportive, a real lifeline. Through them, I learned innovative methods to uncover these hidden stories. One historian, in particular, introduced me to a collection of family letters that mentioned Clara's work, a true goldmine. It was a breakthrough, and it gave me hope that her story could finally be told, not just for academics, but for everyone. If you're curious about these innovative ways to unearth women's stories, you might find Uncovering Forgotten Women, New Methods Explored insightful. It's truly amazing what you can find when you look beyond the obvious. Resolution and reflection: why this work matters eventually. Clara's story came together, not as a neat, perfectly packaged narrative, but as a rich mosaic of her achievements and struggles. Sharing her story beyond academic circles felt like a small, but deeply meaningful, victory. It was a way to honor her legacy and, hopefully, inspire others. It taught me the immense value of persistence and the undeniable power of community in amplifying voices that deserve to be heard. Looking back, I'd definitely do some things differently. I'd start with a broader network of collaborators from the outset, for one, and perhaps focus more on oral histories, which proved incredibly invaluable. But I'd absolutely repeat the experience of diving deep into those forgotten archives, Because it's there, in the overlooked corners, that true, authentic stories truly reside. These experiences affirmed, for me, precisely why we must revise history to include overlooked women now. It's not just about filling gaps in our textbooks, though that's certainly part of it, especially when 2023 exam analyses show women discussed in only 6% of questions compared to 36.5% for men. It's about giving these women the recognition they've long been denied and, in doing so, enriching our understanding of history as a whole. After all, when the World Economic Forum's 2024 report indicates it will take 134 years to reach full gender parity at the current rate, it becomes glaringly clear that we can't afford to keep overlooking half of humanity's contributions. So, the next time you hear a name you don't recognize, or perhaps one that feels oddly absent from the mainstream narrative, I sincerely hope you'll wonder who they were and strive to learn more. Because every single story we uncover, every voice we amplify, is a vital step towards a fuller, fairer, and ultimately more accurate picture of our past.